Hello and welcome to GSF Podcast, sponsored by the Gary Sinise Foundation's Education and Outreach Initiative, aiming to educate the public on the importance of serving America's veterans, first responders, and their families. I am your host, Max Sinise, and today our guest is Kip Perry. Kip Perry is a documentary filmmaker, and he is responsible for creating all the amazing video content you see coming from the Gary Sinise Foundation. Kip and I cover a lot of ground, but before we begin, I wanted to clear up a couple things. Number one, yes, Gary is my dad, and I am his son. Number two, I wanted to give you some quick context for when we talk about the play Tracers. Tracers was a play originally written by a group of Vietnam veterans, and when my dad got the opportunity to direct the play at Steppenwolf Theater in the 1980s, the experience really helped shape his work with the military to this day. I would encourage you all to check out Kip's documentary called Always Do a Little More, which is all about this subject. I'll be sure to include a link to that in the show notes. So with that, we'll get right to the interview. Thanks for coming on, Kip.
Thank you, Mac. It's great to be here. I'm honored to be the first one.
Yes, exactly. First one.
Victim.
Yeah, perfect. I'm excited to kind of talk about, I don't know a ton about the very beginnings of your work with the foundation and how you first met my dad and the whole backstory. So I know I want to talk about all the stuff you're up to right now, but if you could just give us a little bit of a backstory on how you started with the foundation.
Sure. I was actually introduced to your dad by Jonathan Flora, another documentary filmmaker who did the film For the Common Good. The focus was the Lieutenant Dan Band, your dad and the Lieutenant Dan Band.
Right, and that was 2008 or 2009.
Yeah. Right about that time. Jonathan asked me if I would help him with some equipment, doing some shoots. In particular, a long interview with your dad on a stage. I don't remember exactly where that was, but somewhere out in Calabasas area, Agora Hills. And so I said, yeah, sure, that'd be great. But I have to say that I feel like I met your dad long before then on this little movie he did called Forrest Gump. So
you did? Wow.
No. I'm kidding.
Okay.
I watched Forrest Gump and I felt like I knew your dad just from having enjoyed him as Lieutenant Dan.
Right, of course.
I think most people feel that way. In fact, I'd venture to guess that a lot of people think they know your dad just because they've seen him on so many movies and TV shows and all that kind of thing.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think we first met when you came to interview me and my sisters and my mom for that documentary For the Common Good, which was, all about the Lieutenant Dan Band and how that got started. So, yeah.
And you were playing the drums. I think we caught you playing the drums a little bit in your garage, if I recall.
Right. Yeah. And I'd played shows with the band at that time. I would play usually at the CSI New York, rap parties with the band. The band would play, and I would sit in on a couple tunes. But so that was the first time we met. I didn't realize you had initially started on the For the Common Good. That's awesome.
Yeah. So Jonathan introduced me to your dad. And then our offices at the time were really close to where you guys were living. And so from time to time, I'd get a call from either your dad or from Judy Otter and asking if your dad could stop by and do a little on-camera work, some greetings that he needed, some shout-outs, some PSAs, public service announcements, and that sort of thing. And it was always on his way either to work or back from work. I said, sure. So he would stop by and we got to know each other that way. And that was before the foundation started.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how we first really kind of got to know each other a little bit. And I remember Judy called me and said that Gary was starting the foundation and, they needed to do a video for that. And would I be able to to help him with that. And I said, sure, that'd be great. And that was the beginning.
So that would have been 2010 or 11, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And what was it? The initial video, just kind of like an impact video, or like an announcement videos that the foundation was starting, or?
Exactly. So there were a couple of announcements on camera that your dad made, and those were we filmed them and handed them over. But then there was the first impact video, which for 2011, which announced his beginnings, and of course it was taking footage from photos and footage, kind of raw footage, nothing that was shot officially by the foundation, of course, because the foundation hadn't really launched, right. And putting it together to just show what Gary had been up to with the troops and with first responders up to that time. Awesome. Early days,
yeah. What were the kind of initial videos that you were really working on a lot? Probably the RISE program was and still is one of our main programs, but back then that was the big starter is building the smart homes for severely wounded veterans. So were you doing a lot of RISE videos, profile videos for those guys?
Yeah, Judy Otter, who was the executive director and who helped launch the foundation, she called me and said, "Hey, we're doing this home," and it wasn't the first RISE home, but it was one of the early ones. And she said, "We'd like to, capture that." And there's an event, handing it over, the home dedication event, and we'd love to sort of get some video of that, and would you be able to do that? And I said, sure, that'd be great. So my partner, Ilan Bentov, and I went to, I'm trying to remember which one it was, but it was one of the very early RISE homes, and we filmed the interior sort of HGTV style. There was not much to film, though, because the homes weren't staged in any way. This was before furniture became before the Schubert Foundation stepped in with furnishing RISE homes. This was before a lot of the partners who are now on board started participating, and so it was a little bit more than a shell. I mean, it was a home. It was a beautiful home, big home, and wonderful. But it was. These were early days also for RISE, and that's changed a lot over the years. But yeah, we captured the home dedication. That was great, and we've been at every RISE home dedication since. I think we've probably been at 40, 50 home dedications. I think we just finished the 60th home that was dedicated a week or two ago. Down in Florida.
Oh, awesome! And which home was that?
That was for Stephen Leroy.
Leroy, awesome.
Yeah, and it's great seeing these homes dedicated to these really heroes. Is very special. They're mostly men. We've had one home dedication to a woman, Tara Hutchinson. That was just a little bit ago, but most of these guys were blown up. Some were wounded in other ways, but by and large, these are guys who've stepped on IEDs. Even Tara Hutchinson, when she was her Humvee, I believe, if I recall correctly, that was blown up as they were going from one place to another. Traumatic injuries. We've had quadruple amputees, severely burned members of the service. These guys sacrificed a lot. So to see what Gary's done and through the foundation and brought people together to honor them and give them something back for all that they gave for our freedom, it's awesome. And almost always at these home dedications, there are people who are kind of openly weeping with gratitude, not out of sadness, but out of just gratitude, sheer gratitude. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I've yet to go to a home dedication, but the videos really sum it all up, and they're just beautiful videos. One of my favorite things about it is how the surrounding community comes out to watch the home dedication and support the veterans. It's not only a home that they have with their families for the rest of their lives. It's also kind of a living, like a monument to the sacrifice they went to for the surrounding community to see as well. So that's just awesome.
Yeah, I love how you say that, monument. It is a monument. It's a reminder to so many people that we do esteem those who serve and protect our freedom. And it's a monument not just to the civilians, but also to the rest of the military. It's a reminder that the American people care about them. So when they go into harm's way, it's sort of a sign that we've got their back.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also curious. Had you? What was your kind of experience with veterans causes or first responders? Had you? Do you have any background in the military or any experience documenting that stuff before the foundation? Or
no, that's interesting. I grew up mostly outside the country. When I was 6, my family moved to Mexico City. Then when I was 10 to Brussels, Belgium, which is NATO territory. And we have a big DoD, Department of Defense, presence there. And then 13 and a half or so, I moved to Geneva, Switzerland, and lived there. So I grew up around a lot of military folk, but was never there was influence, of course, there, but I was not a military kid. But so, and I didn't serve. I came back. They had abandoned the draft at that time when I graduated high school.
All right, yeah.
So I didn't really have that in my background, but certainly moved by what Gary was doing. When I was introduced to it by Jonathan. Jonathan did serve. He served in the Army. And, of course, he was a big champion and continues to be a champion of the foundation. So, yeah, I'm part of that civilian military divide, or I was part of that. It's something that I try and bridge whenever possible, and I hope that these short films, these short documentaries, these short documents that we do for the foundation hopefully help in that, because I think it's something that we're losing sight of when only 1% to 2% of our country serves in any capacity. You have a lot of families who have service, as that runs as part of their family for generations, but then you have others that haven't. Don't have that, and they don't run in those circles, and so they're unaware. They just don't understand. So I think what the foundation is doing is shedding light on the service and protections of our military and first responders, and that's that's an important thing. We have to consider that, and when we consider our freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my dad. A huge inspiration for him to get involved with veterans. Really kicked off after 9/11, but he really knew. Coming from we've really come a long way, I think, since the Vietnam War, and learning from how brutal that war was, and how much worse it was for veterans to come back home not supported at all and kind of rejected by the American people sometimes. So, so many veterans causes have come up since 9/11 to really make sure that doesn't happen again. And I know, the work the foundation is doing, and the reason my dad wanted to do so much was to make sure that didn't happen again, and to make sure that they were supported, and the American people was behind them, and appreciated them serving our country and protecting our freedom. And one of the initial big projects you did for the foundation, and just kind of separately, was the documentary "Always Do a Little More." And that really goes into a lot of the backstory behind my dad's initial involvement with the military, and work with Vietnam veterans, and how that all got started. So can you talk a little bit about that documentary, "Always Do a Little More"?
Yeah, sure. In fact, I was always just very impressed by the work that your dad, that Gary, was doing, and I saw the impact. There's some funny stories of impact, like when we were in Korea. We got to go to Korea in the DMZ, and with the band, with the Lieutenant Dan band, and I remember being on one of the bases out there, and your dad was walking from the USO to the PX, excuse me, and people were just streaming towards him, yelling, "Lieutenant Dan, Lieutenant Dan." I mean, it's really crazy. But I remember I happened to be looking towards the road, and a woman, literally, there's a car is driving down the road, and this woman opens the door and leaps out of a moving car and comes running towards your dad. It was hilarious, actually, because she was yelling, "Mac, Mac, Mac," and I didn't know this at the time, but CSI New York was a huge thing in South Korea. Oh, wow. And so this woman spotted your dad, Mac, and had to go meet him, and she launched herself at him, and needed to get a picture and something signed, and it was very funny. Anyway, and then I also saw that as we left South Korea, he was going through security, and the person who was wanding him stopped him, recognized him, and asked him for an autograph. And this was like their version of TSA. Spotted your dad, and wanted a picture with the star of CSI New York. So it was pretty funny. But,
wow. Yeah. So
anyway,
that was after this security check, or
that was during. It was during it. Yeah, which I thought was great. I wish I'd gotten a picture of that. I saw that kind of impact that he was having, and I thought, this would be a really good thing to showcase. And your dad talks a lot about his background, history, the influence of your mom's brothers, and on him. And so, as I started to find that out, something came out about his history and Tracers, the play that he was able to do when after he created Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago. And it was a fascinating story. Your dad's work was not born just out of his role as Lieutenant Dan. It started long before that, and it seemed like a very compelling story to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people, there are kind of these kind of milestones, I think, in his life that are just kind of stepping stones to all the work he's done with the military, and like you said, initially it was people in his family, my mom's family, that were in the military, and getting to know them. And then obviously he started in the Chicago theater world, started Steppenwolf Theater, and eventually wanting to tell those stories, the Vietnam War stories, authentically. And one of the plays he did was Tracers, and you highlighted that really well throughout the documentary. And initially, it was just going to be like a couple. It was like short videos, but eventually it just elaborated, right?
No, I mean the original idea was, let's do something that's 10, 15 minutes long. That kind of gives the backstory of his of the story of Gary's story with the foundation, or what led him to this, and it expanded. It became essentially an hour-long documentary. And we interviewed a slew of people for that. A lot of wonderful actors who are out there, on the screen today. I keep seeing them pop up like, oh, wait a minute, I talked to him about Gary. This all, is a look back at the early days of Steppenwolf, which is also another fascinating chapter and continues to be a chapter in your dad's life, but a chapter that most people don't know about. He basically, as a high school student, starts a troupe of the Steppenwolf Theater with very prominent actors who are very, very well regarded.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. John Malkovich.
Yeah.
Jeff Perry, Terry Kinney. Yeah, just a bunch of great actors that initially started there with him, and he initially was as well as being in the plays, he really was very involved as an art director and choosing the plays, production, and directing.
Well,
and Tracers was
directing. Yeah, Tracers was that Tracers. Film, and I mean the play that he directed. I'd love to see your dad do more directing. He really needs to do that.
I've talked to him about it before, and I mean, just considering what he does now with the foundation, how much his time is occupied. You basically, when doing a directing gig, that's all you do, all you think about all day long,
Yeah.
So I know he, of Mice and Men, he directed and starred in that one, and he basically didn't do anything else other than Of Mice and Men work, So he would have to take some significant time away from the foundation, which definitely isn't going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, I would love to see that as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But when you think about how the foundation has grown, it's so big. It's not just a handful of donors or big corporations or whatever. The fact that there's 50,000 people that have donated to the Gary Sinise Foundation is remarkable.
Yeah.
That says a lot. It's one thing to have these foundations who give money that, they're money that's, maybe a corporate responsibility kind of thing. It's a whole nother thing to have a foundation that's $30 million plus a year, that's going out, supporting, all these wonderful causes. And it's not a single cause too. There are so many programs in the foundation. It makes those impact videos pretty hard to put together sometimes. There's so much of a story to tell every year. It's amazing.
Yeah. I would imagine you're traveling all the time, because I'm just amazed at how much the foundation's doing at any one given time with all the programs. And with my dad's history, he had helped veterans in so many different kinds of ways for so many years, whether it's with the wounded veterans or with families that and first responders, that wanted to really keep it flexible and do a lot of things, which is why you're constantly traveling, I'm sure, and trying to capture as much as possible.
Oh yeah, following your dad is a nonstop thing. I mean, I don't mean that in every day, but when we do travel with your dad, those are busy days. Your dad keeps an intense schedule, and it's nonstop. And I mean that in the best way. He doesn't get a break.
Right.
and he loves it. I mean, I really think that it feeds his soul and it energizes him to be out there. That's pure. It's pure joy for him. It seems to me. I don't doubt that he comes back exhausted at the end of the day, whenever that end of the day is. And but yeah, he is truly motivated beyond anything or anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's truly amazing, and I know both of my dad and you guys just got back from the snowball program.
Yeah,
and that is a 4-day event in Disney World.
Yeah, that is perhaps the most emotionally exciting and draining experience. It's an amazing thing to witness. These well over 1,000 children. These are children who've lost a parent, generally a dad, in service to our country, and then they come with again mostly their mom or guardian, a parent and guardian. American Airlines flies, I think it's 13 charter flights from around the country. They bring all these families together. It's something to watch. The power of it is, I mean, there's news about it all the time. What a great feel good story as we approach Christmas. These families, are feeling the loss all the more strongly, and so they come into a giant hug by the foundation, which is, and it's wonderful. They get to experience Disney World. That's always fun. But even beyond that, and maybe more important, is they get to sort of get together with those who have experienced the same kind of loss. And it's a very comforting and comfortable place to be for them. And that's really awesome to watch. And perhaps the most powerful moment is the walk of gratitude, which is early in the morning. All the families get up and head out to the Magic Kingdom, and they gather. Your dad said a few words, and they have this choir that sings a beautiful song, and then they go down Main Street. They walk down Main Street, and snow is pouring out. It's magical. I mean, it's as only Disney can do. There's snow coming down. There's a band leading the way. They walk down Main Street towards the castle, and they gather around the castle. Mickey comes out with your dad. Again, a few more words are said, and there's this experience where they've written these scrolls. All the kids have written previously these scrolls that are poured into this big, for lack of a better word, like a cauldron, and then through the magic of Disney, the fireworks begin, and these messages of love are brought up or put skyward toward the heavens, and messages to their loved ones, and music's playing, and fireworks go off around the castle, and you have these approximately 2,000 people watching, and it's awesome. Oh, and as they walk down Main Street, one of the big things, you have literally thousands of people lining the streets. These are Disney employees, volunteers, just people from the community who are cheering these families. Oh my gosh, there's tears everywhere. It's awesome.
Wow.
And then they get to go to Tomorrowland and enjoy a couple hours just exclusively, Snowball Express families enjoying the rides.
Wow, yeah. So they open the park just for the Snowball families, right? Or
yeah, it's just them and the volunteers who come to cheer them on, and they don't know that there are volunteers along the street. So when they come around from the train station and that main square, and they walk down Main Street, there's just this eruption of cheering and applause and just love being poured out upon them, and of course the snow coming down. So it's pretty amazing. And then that day is capped by at the end of the day, they have the Lieutenant Dan band comes out, and Gary and the band play for the kids, and it's awesome. It's the best event. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of great events at Gary Sinise Foundation, but that is truly epic.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds epic. Yeah, and my dad was saying he got back recently and said that, I mean, the concert was at the very end of the day when he played, and by that time they had been up since really early in the morning and gone through all the parks and everything, and he saw like some kids just like passed out, some of the little ones, it was just must have been a long day to do the parks and then a 2-hour concert.
Oh yeah, it was a beautiful day. So after they go into Tomorrowland, they spend all day at the parks. The seniors, the kids, because Snowball is it recurs, it comes back every year. Kids come back every year, but the seniors then graduate out, and they get to participate in the parade. So they come out as sort of the pre-parade down through the Magic Kingdom, down Main Street to the end of the train station, and that's really special too. And so they've done that. Then they spend the day at the park. They go back. They have this big dinner. Chef Robert Irvine is there to throw a big dinner for all the kids and families. Then they have the Marvel heroes were there. They were on hand to greet the kids. Then they move to the concert, which is at Epcot, and they have the concert, and it's hilarious to look at all these little kids who are passed out along the floor. So you have to like walk carefully around there, but then you have the majority of people who are just bouncing to the music and dancing and screaming and just having a wonderful time. Yeah, and then at the very end, they go outside and there's fireworks. The Disney fireworks take place, and then everyone heads home. I think the funniest part about this is when all the kids arrive on the planes on American Airlines. They're so excited. The planes are decorated. The flight attendants get dressed up. It's a big event. The send-offs at each of the hubs where these 13 flights originate from. It's big deal. They get off the planes. There's more celebration. It's big. As they arrive at Disney World and at the hotel, there's bands and people cheering, and it's amazing that all you see is these eyes like are just in whoa, what's going on? This is incredible. Well, by the end of the 4 days, they get back on these charters and they're all asleep. They're like passed out for the entire flight, and they've had quite the run up to Christmas. So I think it's an experience that is truly unforgettable.
Yeah, I bet. And as a documentary filmmaker, you're getting a lot of the personal stories, individuals telling their stories. I'm sure kids and various things. Were there any like big stories or really impactful interviews you had this time around?
Oh, they're all impactful.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time with we get to interview a handful of families one of the days, and it's probably the most emotionally draining part of the experience for me personally. Just every story is very, very special, and they love to talk about their heroes. That's one of the things that is very misunderstood and it's created, I think, by our civilian military divide, is that, a lot of people don't know how to, I shouldn't talk about their hero because, that person is no longer with us. And so they ignore, or they feel awkward or whatever. No, these families, they want to talk about their dad. They want to talk about their husband. They want to talk about their wife, their loved one, whatever their son, whatever the case might be. They love that. They beam at that opportunity. And so, we chat about that person. I mean, this whole thing snowball started because, a service member wrote in his final letter to his wife that, hey, should anything happen to me, be sure to take the kids to Disneyland like we planned. And it's it's powerful to talk. They don't want to ignore the person that they miss. They actually want to talk to them about it. So I encourage anybody who doesn't know that to definitely, when you see a Gold Star family or a family that has lost a loved one in service to our country, make sure you ask them about their hero.
Yeah, that's actually really good to know, because like you were saying, with the kind of civilian military divide, it's kind of difficult if you aren't around those families very much to know exactly how to comfort them or how to approach that. So that's really good to know that they really want to talk about their hero, especially in that context. I would imagine that
right.
they're there to not only give them a comforting Christmas and just an amazing experience with other people who have gone through the same thing, but also to honor the fallen as well.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, anybody who can see, you can see the video from last year, and there's a long form video out on the Gary Sinise Foundation YouTube page. It's really neat to watch. I say that I don't mean that as like, oh, because we did such a great job, but just because you can get a taste of what happens at this thing.
Is that from last year's
That's from
video?
last year's.
Okay.
Yeah. We're working on this year's, but that'll take a little time.
Yeah. Well, I know you've got a lot of editing to do. I'm sure you've got Snowball and the impact video, all these end of the year videos. It's so much to get to, but thank you for doing this, Kip, and
sure.
Really appreciate it. And hopefully we can talk again. And thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
You've just been listening to GSF Podcast, the official podcast of the Gary Sinise Foundation. If you'd like to find out more about what the Gary Sinise Foundation is up to, or if you'd like to make a donation, please visit www.GarySiniseFoundation.org. Make sure to tune in next time for more interviews, and thanks for joining us.